In this segment, Debbie and I want to talk about the border. Now, we're actually heading to the border soon.
Yes.
In fact, this coming weekend.
We never see Mom that often. So when we do, and I have friends that are like, hey, when are you going to come visit and all that? And it's like, listen, because of COVID, we've been very distant really with Mom. I mean, obviously the last
your mom's
few
86.
years. Yeah, she's going to be 87. She turns 87 next week. And I want to do something really special for her, but she's my priority. So, right now, it's all about Mom. So.
Well, it's interesting to drive through South Texas toward the border because you see things that you don't see elsewhere in the state. It's the way that the border is sort of dealing with the problems over there. Well, here's a very interesting, this is from Arizona, not Texas. Migrant shot dead by Arizona rancher. Held on $1 million for murder charge, was deported several times before. So let's recapitulate. There's an Arizona rancher. A migrant shows up on his property, in his vicinity, in his venue. He shoots the migrant. The migrant is apparently a repeat offender, has been multiple times deported before. But here's what you have as a result. Dead migrant, Arizona rancher is now in prison awaiting trial for, first-degree murder or second? First-degree murder. He's accused of killing this guy in cold blood. And number three, there's obviously a ranch family that now is missing their father. Mm-hmm. And look...
Well, I think these are elderly people, so it's just the wife. And so she's running it by herself. The ranch. By herself.
So we don't have to get into the circumstances of what exactly happened because we're not trying to resolve this case. We're making a bit of a broader point, at least I'd like to make a broader point, which is that none of this would have happened if we had control of our border.
If the federal government was doing their job of protecting American citizens.
Yeah, and you even told me this morning, you're like, shouldn't we be able to sue?
Yeah, the wife. I mean, can't she sue the Biden administration for the damages that her husband is now incurring because he alone had to defend their property because the federal government is not doing it? I mean,
morally, this is true because you can say, look, what is the purpose of government? Yeah. What is the first and main reason that we, let's think about why do we leave the state of nature, philosophically speaking, and enter into a society? Well, the number one reason is protection. We do it because, and in fact, this is why we give up the power to, in normal circumstances, protect ourselves. We say, okay, we'll let the cops do it. Now, obviously, if somebody shows up in a home invasion, the cops aren't there, you have every right, in a sense, to go back to the state of nature and protect yourself. But the point being that the Biden administration is flagrantly violating its responsibilities. Sadly, I don't think you can sue them. You don't have a legal case any more than you have a legal case. You can say, I have a son or daughter who was harmed in a crime. Why do we have such a high crime rate? My government is not protecting me. I'm going to sue the government. That's really not going to get anywhere. You can't sue the government for the failure of its own bad policies. The only remedy is really at the ballot box.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of continuing to speak about the border, there was a meeting, a border patrol, met with, I don't know if it was I guess it was before Congress. Chief Border Patrol Agent Gloria Chavez, she held a meeting with local law enforcement in Weslaco, Texas, describing the administration's plan to release in mass immigration, foreign nationals into the U.S. when Title 42 ends, which means that, 15,000 a day are coming in through the southern border, right? Down in the valley where we're headed. And she's saying that they're going to be released into the communities. Some of these people, as we know, are criminals. A lot of them are criminals.
Yeah, Title 42 is essentially a COVID restriction, and it said that there should be a restriction on the amount of illegals let into the country because they could be bringing COVID. So it seemed like a very practical point. But Biden was like, it's time to get rid of that. It's time to go to set aside Title 42. And their plan was, then we can go nuts. Mm-hmm. Then we can just let illegals in all over the place, dispatch them all over the country. So you can see here that there is a democratic strategy. And look, I'm not endorsing some kind of, quote, great replacement theory where they're trying to swap out the population for another population. But on a very simple level, they're trying to add future potential voters that are going to be habitually dependent on government and habitually democratic.
What they're doing is that they're unleashing future potential killers, criminals. I mean, that... and look, they don't care if they kill a Democrat or a Republican when they're here. So do they not know that? Look at this. So this past year, Border Patrol agents were assaulted. 17 Border Patrol agents were assaulted. That's the highest number in history. So again,
that's a small reflection of the broader crime problem.
It is. And all these people from Cuba, interestingly, are coming in through the Mexican border. Why? Because they get deported if they go to Florida. They get deported immediately. But they get asylum if they go through Mexico. So we're seeing just, an explosion of this.
The very fact that you're seeing, Iranians and Pakistanis and Cubans showing up at the Mexican border shows us that this has now become an absolute free-for-all.